Hello, welcome to Lemon Studios, where we talk anything and everything entertainment. I'm, of course, the Lemon himself, Zeke Lemon, and this is my review for Alien Earth Episode 3. But before we get into that, let's get the housekeeping out of the way, shall we? I'm Julie. Like, comment below, let me know your thoughts on Alien Earth, and of course, hit that subscribe button as it helps me grow into a YouTube career. I would greatly appreciate it. Now, all that out of the way, let's get into it, shall we? So, I think this was another very solid episode. I mean, they are really nailing it out of the park. You know, episode 1 and 2, I have my very minor problems within it. And in this episode, I don't have many issues when it comes to the episode overall. Just some of the blocking and some of the story elements I have questions on. Like with Wendy looking for her brother. I mean, her brother has the biggest coat of plot armor ever, because you know, our cyborg that we are following, who's getting much more interesting every single week. I don't know if he's the main antagonist of this series, or it's going to be the Prodigy, but he's getting very, very more interesting. But in episode 1, I believe, is that it was established that he is willing to kill to make sure that he gets his life forms over to his program, to his Weyland branch, right? And, you know, he was killing those 2 redcoats that we didn't really know that well. No problems, trap them, everything's good. And then when we get to the brother, then, you know, it's all about stunning, and he doesn't really necessarily want to kill. And this alien, it shows that it is down to just go for the jugular, which is, the xenomorph always wants to do that, right? But with the brother, he wants to play with his food a little bit and trap him in this freezer. Like, why is he put him in the freezer? And I mean, I could have my memory kind of a little fuzzy. It's been a minute since I've seen all the Alien films. But again, I've always viewed the xenomorph as taking all comers, doesn't really stalk that much. Like, stalks at first when it doesn't know that it's there, but once it knows that, hey, you know I'm here and I know that you know I'm here, so let's just grab and let me go ahead and kill you. That's how I've already seen the xenomorph. Now that he's like stalking the prey, he's like placing it here, is a little more crafty, interesting, and especially that this is technically the first xenomorph that the human race has ever gotten to come to terms with. Now that I have looked at the timeline, this does take place before Alien, and again we scrap Prometheus and Alien Covenant, which still bugs me. And there was a line that was said in this episode that I wasn't necessarily a fan of, because it did feel like that was the indicator of the retcon, but we'll get into that a little bit. But, you know, he takes him into this freezer, then here comes Wendy to bail him out. And then the xenomorph backs away from her. That portion I wasn't the hugest fan of at initial thought, but it does look like Wendy has some connection to the xenomorph or to these life forms. What that is, I do not know yet, because as she's walking towards that freezer, you know, she hears the sirens of the xenomorph or of these creatures that are on this spaceship. And it was also like that in episode 1 and 2 a bit too, when she was like, what is that noise? I don't know what that noise is. And then, you know, at the end of the episode, where I would assume the chromosome of the face hugger, the thing that goes into what I think is our lungs, because those were the lungs, I believe those were lungs that we saw at the end of episode 1, is just very interesting how, like, she was so connected with it, because, you know, as they were staticking the face hugger, she was feeling a lot of pain, she was feeling the ringing, so there is some connection there. So as much as I had initial thought, seeing the xenomorph back away from her, I wasn't a fan of it. But as the episode progressed, I am now willing to wait and see where this goes, because there is some connection between the two. I do love the exploration of the anatomy of the alien, of the xenomorph, of the facehugger, like going in, doing that little science project. Okay, now we have some lungs here, which I do think are the brothers. I can't recall the brother's character's name, but I do wonder how that's going to come into play, because I think he's going to be coming half android as well pretty soon, and they're like freezing up the lungs, his anatomy, and just using him as, you know, science experiment, and then his brain will go into some programming of a Sith droid or whatever. That's going to be very curious to see. Very, very curious to see how that's going to play out. The only other thing I wasn't a huge fan of, already alluded to it, was, well, I do feel like what was the nail in the coffin of that we are retconning Prometheus and Alien Covenant and that whole timeline is when the cyborg, who I can't remember his name, and again, very standout character. It was just this one line that I wasn't a huge fan of. Is it goes, "This is my life's work. Is the xenomorph. Is all of these creatures that we've got. This is my life's work." And I'm just like, the other creatures, sure, go ahead. You can have them, whatever. But that xenomorph is David's. But, again, I think that's more on me than it is on the actual structure of the show. But I cannot not tell you how I truly feel when a line really strikes me that kind of way. But, again, that's a little just pettiness on my side. Everything else, though, again, the execution, the strongest point that I do believe that was within this episode is that we are starting to branch out the cast a lot more. Because, Wendy gets sidelined because she gets injured, which I was glad about. At first, I was upset that she was able to beat the xenomorph. I was like, it's a little too early for that. I don't mind Wendy getting the win. And, we're really setting her up to get that win and to beat the xenomorph. But again, in episode 3, I just think that's too early to do that spot. I am glad that it was technically a draw because she decapitates the xenomorph, but the xenomorph did pop her on the head enough that she was out of commission. And if she doesn't get back on that charger, she is dead. Right? So, a draw between the two, assuming we're going to get another match where she does just win later on, that I could swallow a little bit more. It was just a little bit too, early for that. But yeah, she gets injured and she's basically out for the rest of the episode until we get to the end where, we do start to really hammer home there is a connection between her and these creatures in some way, shape, or form. And therefore, we did start to focus more on the lost boys, or lost children, as we should say. As one of the girls said earlier on, goes like, we're not even all boys, like half of us are girls. And seeing that conversation between the two, really curious to see where she's coming from because she keeps seeing her younger self in the reflection. She cannot seem to move on from it. And she just has this deadpan face. Very curious to see where that's going to go. Between, I believe it's Smee and, I forgot what the other one's name is. But them two, they have a very good chemistry with each other. They really do feel like children in these grown-up bodies just playing with each other. And I'm very curious to see, I believe it's Smee who is connected with the cyborg, where, he does the riddle, goes, when is a robot not a robot? Or when is an android not an android? Something to that line. And that dynamic, to see where that's going to progress, it goes, will you be my friend? And seeing how he's going to get to Neverland and all of that. Very, very curious to see how those dynamics are going to come into play, especially with him being such an innocent boy. Again, I am very curious because, the sheer paranoia when he hears and goes, no, please get away, and he starts crying. I really did feel for him. Like in another actor and another director and another way that is executed, it could come out very corny, or it could be very cringy, a grown person going, no, go away, like how I just did it, is very cringy and uncomfortable, right? But the way he did, there was so much earnest in it that really did just feel so sincere, and therefore I was able to go, oh man, poor child, poor baby. Like that's legit what my first reaction was, and then seeing that conversation play out, again, it gives me that more intrigue. I'm also very curious to know more about the Prodigy. Now, I did look up the cast list, but I don't remember the names that well, so I should write them down. But I do think he's going to get aged up because I do think it got spoiled for me. Now, I don't see an older version of him on it, but on his name, on the picture of the actor's face, says Young, and then whatever the character's name is, but we're going to call him the Prodigy for now. And so I think there is going to be a time jump at some point within this show, and I don't think we necessarily need it. And again, I think he's so really interesting in the way that he has a conversation with the, like he just has all these questions, and how he wants kind of people to challenge him too, where, they'll operate on when he goes, we shouldn't be sending these prototypes and all this stuff. He goes, please tell me. And yeah, it's very in a very dickish way, but I do think there was a sincereness of like, please tell me what's wrong. Let me learn. I would like to learn. I do think that is the basis of his character, because he feels like he knows everything and he wants something new. So that dynamic I really liked. And then, when he goes in and he talks to whoever Timothy Oliphant's playing is another Sith. And he goes wow, it's everyone cranky? Like, what's going on? And then the conversation he has with the other lost child who yearns for his affection. And I don't know how we're going to play it. There is a creepy way that we can go about it. And I hope we don't go down that route, because that would make me uncomfortable. I just don't know. There's a way to do it, but I would rather if we don't. But it is a very interesting dichotomy to see, having heard these conversations goes, no, it doesn't upset me that she's not your favorite, but, I would like to be the favorite. And he goes, yeah, well, you do this, you do that, so that I can have more interesting conversations. And then you are in the race now after this conversation, but you're not quite the favorite yet. So to see that, how she's going to progress within that. Again, this episode overall has done great at expanding the cast. And it feels like they really focus on the ones who are going to make it to the end. So, the lost children, I think, are going to make it to the end. I think the prodigy is going to make it to the end. I think the cyborg is going to make it to the end. Everyone else, I do feel like they're red shirts at this point. I do like the doctors on Neverland. The guy who challenged him goes, you shouldn't send these prototypes to go after him. The butler that has the conversation with the boys, I think he's not going to make it. The girl doctor who feels like, the mother of the children, I don't think she's going to make it. She might make it later than the others, but I don't think she's going to make it that far. But yeah, I'm ready for next week, and I'm actually anticipating it. I'm already counting down to next Tuesday, which is a sign of a very, very good show. Very curious to see how a lot of these executions are. Some questionable decisions, but we'll see how it plays out. But let me know what you think about it down in the comment section. If you made it this far within a review, please leave a like. I do greatly appreciate it. And hit that subscribe button, as it helps me grow into my YouTube career. All right. Make sure you squeeze the days, guys, because life is too short not to give it you all. So squeeze every opportunity that you can. And until next time, I'll see you here at Lemon Studios.